Hello. Welcome to episode 2 of the Good Things Are Brewing podcast and video show. I don't know. I've never done a video podcast before, so that's new for me. Maybe Sheryl, you'll have to tell me what to call it. You call yours a show, right?
Yep. I just stick with show.
Yeah, that simplifies things, I guess. So I am having coffee this morning with my friend Sheryl, and I'm going to let her go ahead and introduce herself right off the bat, and then we'll tell you what we're sipping this morning, and we're going to chat about some fun stuff that she is an expert in. So Sheryl, start off by introducing yourself for everybody.
So I am Sheryl M. Robinson, and I, as a full-time job, work as a CFO at a community health center. And in my personal life, I spend a ton of time on Girl Scout stuff, but I have 2 podcasts, Hearts of Gold and Sensory Strides, and they take up a lot of my time, but I really enjoy working on them.
So Sheryl and I love to chat about podcasting stuff, which we're not going to go into too much detail about that today, which is going to be hard to do. But episode 1, I chatted with Corey about launching a podcast because that's something they're doing and I've done before and all that good stuff. And Sheryl knows Corey too. But it'll be hard not to talk too much about podcasting today. But we have some other things that we're going to focus on. But we met through Girl Scouts, so I know we'll have a lot of Girl Scout friends watching and listening as well. So we met through Girl Scouts at a national convention and a little bit through my first podcast, right? You listened to my first podcast and then we met in person.
Yes, I was a stalker of your first podcast.
I wasn't going to say it, but if you do, that's okay. Yeah. But in like the best possible way. And the best part of it is that then we met in person and then we became like best friends. And now we talk every week. And what I love about Sheryl as a friend and the way that we've connected is we connect every week about our goals and what we're working on and what our priorities are. And so she is an excellent accountability partner for me. So thank you, Sheryl, for helping me stay on track. Okay, so this morning, Sheryl and I are sipping our Java Mama coffee together in our fancy mugs. Cheers, Sheryl. Sheryl told me about her. I kind of know her flavor preferences a little bit. I couldn't remember if you had ever tried, we're drinking French vanilla this morning, and I sent her a little packet. Oh, is it backwards? I should have asked you when we started if things were backwards.
Nope, it's right. It's
Yay!
right.
Okay, so we're sipping French vanilla this morning. Have you tried it before?
I have not.
Me neither.
You picked a flavor that I hadn't tried.
Oh, yay. I have never tried it either. Isn't that wild? It's one of our like key samples and I give it to people all the time, but I've never actually tried it. I like it. What did you think?
Yeah, I think it's good. It's very, very smooth. So
yeah, I mean, every one of them is, I think. I think I was trying to place like what kind of a vanilla it is. It's not quite like a vanilla cake frosting, but not quite an Oreo cream. Like what's it? I can't quite place it, but it's good.
Yeah, and it's not like the French vanilla creamer either.
No. Well, I'll have to something will come to us in the middle of this conversation and then we'll circle back to it. But it's good.
Yeah.
I like it.
It's very good.
I like it.
And I'm using a Tula 12
little
coaster.
Me too. We both have our Valentine's Day ones. I love keeping a coaster on my desk. I actually have a little pack of Halloween ones here that are going to get packed away for next year.
Very cool.
We've passed Halloween now, but I'll pull them out next year. Now I'm committed to actually producing this podcast episode fairly quickly, so they're not confused about me holding up a Halloween coaster. Okay, so I'm so excited to chat with Sheryl this morning about the topic that we've planned because we actually chose this topic a little while back because it's something that Sheryl, that you do and you're passionate about. But I was actually just in a conversation a couple of days ago. I went out to lunch with a friend who is completing their bachelor's degree right now. And he I shouldn't even say he goes to class, because all of his classes are virtual because of the way that his university is working right now. So he lives in his dorm room because he's required to. He takes all of his classes online. He's not working because he's focused on school. And he eats and sleeps and does his classes. And I was asking him, what's next for you? Like where are you moving to when you finish this degree? Like, what's your plan, or what's your goals, or like, where do you want to go next? Because of course, as a friend, I want to be supportive to him. And he was like, I don't know, man. I really don't. I don't know. I mean, I'm going to have this degree, and he was feeling very, like unsettled about what's next for him. And in that moment, I really wished I had the tools or the right questions to ask, or the right way to kind of get him thinking about things, because he's super smart. He's really personable, like can make friends like this. Like he could do anything he wanted to do next in the world, but he just doesn't know what he wants to do. Right. So like when the world is open to you and you're like, where do I go from here? And I've had times in my life too, where I've been in that spot of like, okay, so now what? And so when I looked back at our notes about what kind of the loose topic that we want to talk about today, I was like, oh, perfect. I wish we would have talked about this before I had the conversation with him, because I feel like I should have you talk with him, Sheryl, because you have this way of asking questions and looking at things from a different perspective to take, something that someone is interested in and move it to like a goal or an action plan or a project. So anyway, that's kind of how I'm connecting all the things. It's so funny how these little seeds are planted and then you're put in places where that knowledge would be really useful. So I hope that'll come up for people who are watching and listening, that they can use this information going forward. But give us, a little background on kind of what you do and how this fits into your life, and kind of how to start thinking about that big concept.
So I do this all the time with high school Girl Scouts, because when they're considering their gold award, they often don't know what to do for their project. And I really, really encourage them to make sure that it's meeting their passion. And so similar to your friend who is going to come away with this degree, like you want to identify what you're really, really interested in, and then match it up to those more tangible, like I don't want to say non-fun, because you can make it fun, but the non-things, right? So, that's what your friend is doing with Girl Scouts. You want to find their passion, but you have to meet all these requirements of the Gold Award. I just presented at a podcast conference about starting a podcast, and similar idea. People might want to do a podcast, but they don't know what to talk about. And that's where, you really need to figure out what the interests are for you in order to make it a good product. Mm-hmm. So when you're doing this, you really, really need to think about, and I just tell girls or whoever that I'm talking to, like, just brainstorm, just take a piece of paper and just write everything down. What interests you? What gives you joy? What are your goals? All of the things that like really get your heart pumping and get you excited and make you happy and give you energy. Giving you energy is a huge part of it, right? Mm-hmm. Like you want to do something that's going to build you up and not just make you feel like, oh, now I got to do this, and now I got to do this, and now I got to do this. So you've really got to figure out where that excitement comes from for you. And then figure out who you want to work with, who, in podcasting, who is your audience going to be? In Girl Scouts, who do you want to work with? So depending on what it is, think about all the different people that you might be able to touch and how that might interact with, what you're doing.
I think that part really translates back to business too. So we have a lot of people in our group here who are business leaders or have their own business. And that idea of creating like your ideal client, or your ideal, imagining your ideal team member, or imagining, that a lot of this translates back to that, but particularly the who of thinking about who can you serve and who do you want to partner with. I think those translate over to business too, which is really cool.
Absolutely. And when you're thinking about it like that, like from your business perspective and what customer you're trying to serve, like really narrow it down, like think of that specific person. You will reach more people than that. Yeah. But if you think of that specific person, then you can message to that person and your message is going to be much clearer than if you're just trying to talk to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then again, think about why you want to reach them, why you want to share your message. What is your why? You know, what makes this exciting for you? What, you know, it might not, you know, in Girl Scouts, we often talk about working with animals, right? But you have to get down to the why. Why are animals interesting to girls? You know, which part of it is interesting? You know, that sort of thing. So again, similar to like we talked about niche, focusing on who that specific customer is, even though you're going to be talking to more people than that. Getting to your why so that you like have that focus, that piece that you're working towards, the reason that you're doing whatever you're doing.
Yeah. I like with the three that you've kind of touched on so far, like the interests and joy, who you want to work with and why you want to do that. I feel like, so this is just popping to my mind as I'm hearing you say it. There are probably people that feel overwhelmed. Like if you came to me with those questions right now, just kind of like out of the blue, I would be like, I don't know. Right. Like if you're starting from, if you're starting from nowhere, sort of, that sounds weird to say, but something else that's been kind of popping up in my life lately is the concept of journaling or writing, or even just keeping a really simple gratitude journal, or doing something like morning pages where you just write kind of stream of consciousness, like whatever thoughts are coming to you, or you write just a summary of your day at the end of the day of what types of things happened or stood out to you or who you interacted with. So potentially if people are struggling with what the answers are to these questions that you're asking, keeping a written journal of some type for like even 2 weeks or longer is probably better, but even a short period of time, and then going back through and kind of reviewing or rereading and thinking about these questions at the same time, you might actually find the answers. I'm actually thinking about this now for myself. Like maybe I should do this as an experiment. I feel like you could potentially kind of mine out and dig and find the answers to the questions in what you're already doing day to day, but it's just kind of bringing the attention back to it. You know, like if you asked me right now, Sheryl, like what brings you joy in life? I'd be like, drinking coffee. But if I kept a gratitude journal for 2 weeks, then I've got a whole list of things that are bringing me joy because I'm grateful for them, and it's the things I'm thinking of at the end of the day. So that might be a little trick or a tool.
I love that idea. I completely agree, because it's really hard when you just sit down and do something. Whenever I'm brainstorming, like I brainstorm over a period of time, and so I don't journal. As we've discussed before, I'm really bad at anything related to meditation or journaling or things like that. But what I'll do is I will have a piece of paper, and every time I have an idea related to it, I'll jot it down. Right.
Yeah.
So, right. So, but I love the idea of creating the gratitude journal. And I love the focus on the gratitude journal, because focusing on the positive is always good. Yeah. But if you're setting out to do this for that 2 weeks, I would also consider the things that drained you for the day. So that you can also make sure you're staying away from those things. Yeah,
that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I like that. Almost like 2 columns in your notebook or whatever. Yeah,
exactly. But remember, when you're writing those down, you know, you can say, random, just because again, I just moved and I have these amazing sunrises and sunsets today.
Yes.
And this morning, the sunrise, the moon, it was that little teeny crescent. And then I had this so the sky was still dark, but then I had this beautiful little orange pink line And, just looking at that gives me joy. But, if you put that in a gratitude journal, think about the why, right? And for me, going back to the meditation, I don't meditate, but I took 2 minutes to just sit there and look at that. And so let me center, right?
That's a meditative moment. Yeah.
So think about, when you're doing it, think about the reasons that it gave you joy too, especially if you're doing it for this type of exercise.
Because that's going to get to that deeper level that then you can apply to other things and other areas of life, or things that
it's like oftentimes in business, we just read this book. What was it? Magic of Moments or something like that?
Yeah, The Power of Moments. Yeah.
Power of Moments. And in there, they talked about asking the 5 whys, right? So you ask why, and granted, this is a business focus on it, but you ask why, and then you ask another why about whatever that answer is, and then you ask another why about what that answer is, and you do that 5 times, and then you really narrow down to what the real why is.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so in the spirit of, I love your idea of things that brought you joy and then things that drained you. So there's like a problem solving aspect that we can focus on in here too. I know you kind of focus on that sometimes. So tell us more about that, how to take the problem solving approach.
So when you're taking the problem solving approach, and I think this kind of goes back to the 5 whys. Like, you really have to narrow down why it's a problem in order to be able to solve it.
Yeah.
And I really think that 5 whys goes back to that, right? So what are you looking to fix? What are you looking to do? What are you looking to expand, right?
Yeah.
So those things. And then how do you think you want to accomplish this? What tools do you want to use? What skills do you have that you can use to help accomplish this? So think about all of those other either internal or external things that can help you to fix the problem too.
Yeah, I'm curious about like we talked, it just kind of came up naturally here in conversation. We talked about the idea of writing and the idea of kind of taking a meditative moment to think about something and think about the deeper reason, and then jotting that down either through journaling or brainstorming. What are some other because I'm really concrete and action oriented, so I'm trying to just think and brainstorm what are some other ways that other tools that people could use to help them answer these questions. So I'm thinking like having a conversation with a mentor or someone you trust. Like, I would sit down and have a conversation with you about it because you would, ask follow-up questions, get me thinking about different things in different ways. Sometimes I love a friend like Sheryl because sometimes I will just talk for 10 minutes straight, and then you will say, here are the 3 main points that I heard you say. And you can kind of,
I don't know what that was.
It was your backdrop kind of fell in one corner.
Yep, it's falling. It's fine.
That's okay. I'm going to leave this part in because that's fun. It's real life. Yep. So anyway, what was I saying? Oh, when we talk, I can just talk for 10 minutes if I'm unclear about something. And when I'm finished talking, you'll say, okay, Stacie, here are the 3 main points that I heard from you. Does this sound right? And I'm like, oh, yes, but I didn't even know that those were the 3 main points, right? So sometimes you need that friend to kind of set aside that time and talk it through and let them kind of mirror back to you what you already know or what you're already thinking, but you can't quite identify it. Can you think of other tools or resources or ways that people could kind of concretely approach this?
So when I do Girl Scout training to help them brainstorm on a project, we use a couple of tools. So one is mind mapping, and there are online tools for it, but I am not the biggest fan of the online tools. I like just taking a big whiteboard or a big sheet of paper and just writing down all of your thoughts and then taking my different markers and circling things that relate to each other in different colors. And so one thing might have multiple colored circles around it, right? Because it relates to multiple things. And then what you can do is you can see which color floats to the top, right?
Yeah, I like that. A different way of kind of categorizing and figuring out priorities potentially. Yeah.
Right. So first you don't worry about coloring to begin with. You just brainstorm and put everything out on the piece of paper, and then you go back and you figure out what matches up together or what could go together. Another one is the star, and it's a 6-pointed star, and it kind of goes through the questions that we went through: who, what, where, why, how, when. Right.
Okay.
And the tool, like, then there's sub questions under all of those related to those, so that you can like really think out. And sometimes for the star, you have to have at least a concept, or a direction. You don't have to have something solid, but you have to have, it's helpful to have something to start with. And there's a third one that I can't remember right now.
That's okay.
Oh, well.
That's okay. Yeah. So that kind of like structured worksheet sort of thing, and some structured way to do that written brainstorming rather than just sitting with a blank piece of paper and making something up off the top. Because sometimes it's really hard to start from square one, right? Like you just need that little first spark to get you going. And then it's a roller coaster from there.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else that you wanted to cover on this topic that we haven't covered yet, or we got the main points?
I think those are the main points. I would add, I know that you are going to ask me where to find me, so I'm going to add this into my comment though.
Okay.
I actually did a series when I first started Hearts of Gold. I did a series on brainstorming. So those episodes are available on the podcast and on the YouTube channel.
Nice.
But there's also on my website, heartsofgoldpodcast.com, there are some handouts that go with those episodes.
Perfect.
And they have the mind map. They talk about the mind mapping, and they talk about the star and whatever the third one is that I can't remember.
Okay, that one's in there too? Okay, cool.
That one's in there too. So
this is a great tease. Everyone's going to go to your website to find out what the third one is. Excellent marketing.
I did not intend it that way.
Oh, I love it. Okay, yeah. So to wrap things up, you already previewed this. Of course, thank you so much for joining me for coffee this morning and sharing your wisdom and chatting. I always love to chat with you because it always makes me think in different directions. But let us know, well, not me, I already know, but let the people know where they can find you online, how to follow your work, how to connect with you, and anything else that you want to share with them.
Yep. And I'm Sheryl M. Robinson on almost every social media platform. And that's Sheryl with an S. So SHERYL M Robinson, ROBINSON. And that includes my YouTube channel, which is where all of my, I video record my podcast with my Girl Scouts. And there are some extra bonuses in there on other things that I've recorded. But then also Hearts of Gold on all podcast platforms.
Nice. Love it. I love Sheryl's Hearts of Gold podcast episodes. Every time I listen to one, I feel so inspired and hopeful for where our world can go with these young female leaders who are making change in their communities. It's really amazing and heartwarming.
They're just amazing.
It's incredible
every time.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I mean, everyone can tell just from our conversation here that the way you ask questions gets people thinking and gets them to really open up. And so having you interview, I mean, we haven't really talked about the premise of your podcast, but people will figure it out. Having you interview these young women who are doing really incredible things, it's such a great match. And it's a really good example of you tapping into your passion and the things that bring you joy to bring something to life in the world. And you can tell when you watch it and listen to it. So thank you for doing that work, because it's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's what we have for today. So thank you, Sheryl. Thanks everybody for tuning in and watching and listening, and cheers. Have a great day. Bye-bye.